Okay, guys, welcome to Bite Me. This is season 1, episode 34, The Truth About the Educational System with J.Dkon, aka Jason. He's my friend from TikTok. Almost post-pandemic, the bulk of us struggled to resume normalcy a year after Zoom meetings, social distancing, sheltering in place, while working from home and navigating distance learning. As we maneuvered through this unknown territory that we call the new normal, some of us were met with the difficult decision to have our children remain at school with the restrictions, or lack thereof, that were implemented by each respective region, or bravely opt to teach our kids from the safety of our own residences. No small task for the working parent in 2021. However, if we're totally honest, having now seen the gross negligence brought on about by the United States government, maybe the kids aren't missing out on much by not going to school anyways. We'll let you decide for yourself. Here to discuss with us today is my fellow TikToker podcaster, J.Dkon, aka Jason. Jason, would you please introduce yourself and a little bit about you?
Sure. Hello, I'm Jason. I have a TikTok channel where I talk about politics, sort of news of the day, and I love it, and that's where I met you.
Yeah, we like to talk shit on there, don't we?
Yes.
Us and John and Tommy, we're kind of a gang of riffraff. So you also have children, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about the educational system, because it seems like you and I we have some perspective in that arena.
Right.
So without disclosing too much about your children personally, I mean, I think you mentioned there's like one in high school. I mean, I don't want to ask the respective ages of your kids, but like, what generally can you tell us about you being a parent? You have 3, is that correct?
Yes, I have 3 daughters. My youngest is in early elementary. My middle is in junior high, and then my oldest is graduating in a couple weeks, actually.
So you have 3 in the 3 respective areas that you would have them.
Yes.
Okay. And then you guys opted to homeschool all 3?
So we are homeschooling my youngest.
Okay.
My 2 oldest, I'm divorced, so my 2 older ones are from my previous marriage.
Okay.
And they primarily live with their mom, and then weekends over here with dad and the rest of the family and stuff. So my ex didn't want them to do at homeschooling until it was mandated here. So like they went to school during COVID. And then all of a sudden, no, all schools are closed. We're doing 100% online learning. And that's when they were forced to. My oldest actually opted in to stay on online learning because her school district offered it. But we put our youngest into homeschool like almost immediately.
So being a parent yourself, what first went through you and your youngest daughter's mind, or I guess you and your ex's mind too, as parents who you co-parent with, what went through your minds when you first realized that the pandemic was going to affect the way your children learn, and what precautions did you start to take?
So it was scary, right? Because, this has never happened in our lifetimes.
Right.
And if it was over in a couple of weeks, and then people, like the swine flu, people were scared about that. It kind of went away after a couple of months, but this is something entirely new.
Sure.
So it was really hard to kind of grasp what would happen down the road. We were kind of just, trying to figure out what we're doing day to day. And so my current wife, we have a kid together. So that's our youngest. We decided, okay, this is not safe. We are going to look for a program, because our youngest daughter was going to a charter school, which they didn't offer an online learning option.
A charter school. For those who don't know, can you explain to us, is that like a private school?
Yeah, so it's privately funded, but it still takes in. So I don't like charters.
Okay.
That's like a whole other podcast. We could totally like blow out charters. But a charter school is like a private institution that collects government grants, but it is primarily funded by private investors. And so they don't adhere to the same educational standards, which I quickly found out once we pulled her out of there.
Yeah.
So they didn't offer an online option. So we went with a program called K-12, which is a nationwide like online option.
Yeah, I've heard of it. We do Time for Learning, but similar.
Yeah, and it's fully accredited, and what was great about them is that we enrolled her, and they sent us like 3 or 4 giant boxes full of books and everything that we needed. And then my wife decided to be the teacher, and so we built like a classroom like upstairs in the loft, and we kind of was like, okay, this is great, but that, has its own challenges.
Right. I remember when I started doing what is now I've learned it's called unlearning with my daughter, not necessarily homeschooling. In her case, it's more of an adopted European method. And I use the term adopted very loosely because it's really most developed countries are using methods that the US has neglected to use, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
At first, it was really fun. Look forward to it every day.
Yeah.
And then it got very quickly with the other challenges of life. I'm sure your wife and you noticed that, okay, this is hard to keep up with. A whole level of new appreciation for the teachers.
Oh yeah. And I've had an appreciation of teachers since I was in school. And, I supported the teacher strike in Arizona. I think it was, it was 2 years ago, I think it was, or late 2019. This sounds a little tropey, but I feel teachers should be paid so much more than they're getting paid right now, because everybody goes to school to learn just normal stuff and then on to whatever career that they're taking. So,
Sure.
the small wages that they're making now, it should be in six figures at minimum. That's just my opinion.
Well, in China,
and going through this, you kind of solidified that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's weird because here in America, we pay our teachers the least and our medical professionals the most. Medical is looked at as a business. And in parts of Asia, you pay the professors the most and the medical professions the least, because it's expected that it's just like a societal expectation that if you know how to help somebody who needs healthcare, you should do it.
Right.
But you pay the teachers for their knowledge, which to me makes sense. But yeah, American education. So then after you guys decided to go ahead and homeschool, and you discussed that you used K-12,
Mm-hmm.
how effective was it? What impact would you say it had on you, your family, your children? Would you recommend it to other people?
Well, so I'll start with the last question first. Yes, I would recommend it.
Okay.
We saw, so it's hard to describe because the school systems, especially, and it depends on your state, obviously, but in Arizona, they're so underfunded,
Sure.
especially the public school systems. But even charters, they're not providing a proper educational structure. Or
really,
yes,
I wouldn't guess that for them. I would assume that there's plenty of money there, but they're teaching different things.
So that's how they trick you. So they
Yeah,
get
yeah.
you in that way. But then you quickly realize that all of the curriculum that they're focusing on is old. It is like previous year curriculum +1. So it's like when we put our youngest into K-12 and now they're expecting her, because they're using a sort of a countrywide standard. They're expecting her to know all of these different things or speed up her learning process. And so in the beginning, it was really tough because she struggled, and she had I can't remember what the term is. It's like an ELA, I think it's what it's called.
Like a delayed learning.
Right. For reading specifically, because she's always kind of struggled with that. And we've done our best to try to read with her every night and stuff, but she's kind of had that issue.
A processing delay, I think is what they call that. I have some of that as well.
And so she had, she struggled for a long time, and my wife's upstairs for 7 or 8 hours trying to get through all of this curriculum. And then after a couple of months, we saw such a drastic improvement because of the way that they sort of teach these things. So and not only that, but she's not having to get up at 6:10 in the morning. And so she's able to sleep a little bit longer. She's taking more frequent breaks. And so when she starts to feel a little frustrated, we sort of take 15 or 20 minutes instead of you only get one 15-minute recess here and a 30-minute lunch. It's not so structured in that way. And she excelled from there as soon as she got it. And she started to get into a routine. It was a lot easier.
Well, they say that time is a social construct. That's the capitalist mindset that they created for society, this 9 to 5 working and the kids going to school from 8 to 3 or whatever. So I too noticed that with my daughter, that there was a sort of relief of being on your own schedule that brought a whole stress level just down. You can get more done that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's lovely for your daughter, because I'm sure, at times when you're feeling stressed, especially if you have that sort of issue where you need a little bit longer longer to process something. I'm
Yeah.
sure that made a world of difference for her and her learning. So, well, good for you guys. Given your experience with the school system, both before and after the pandemic, how would you rate American education? And what specifically, as a parent, do you think could be done or needs to be done better? And who or what do you think should head that? It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
It's a question for Jill Biden.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I think that, like, I always kind of understood the way that the school systems were structured were not optimized for learning.
Yeah.
It was really optimized for, can we create obedient citizens that,
right, robots.
Yes, that adhere to a sort of structured schedule that is not tardy, that raises their hand when they're, that, you know, when they need to use the restroom, has very distinct breaks. And on top of that, we have a system that says, you failed this test. We're moving on now. And you didn't retain the information. You obviously didn't understand it to the best of your ability to sort of take a test, which, by the way, tests are also an issue. But
standardized testing, yeah.
Yeah, or just tests in general.
All of it, yeah.
But like you failed this portion of the exam or this course. We don't have time to return to that and sort of help you understand it. We're moving on because we have to get to other curriculum. And so you're leaving a lot of people, a lot of kids behind because they don't understand what you're trying to teach them. And then they're just left asked out. And
it's
they're
a
like,
one
okay,
size fits all.
Right. And it doesn't work that way. And so post-pandemic, we have an opportunity to sort of not return to that very structured way of just moving kids through school and then just focusing on testing, and that's all they really like are being taught.
Right.
We have an opportunity to restructure that, and I think with a lot more funding, you sort of shrink the size of classes, right, from like 32 kids on average down to something more manageable, like 10 to 14 kids per teacher. Sure. And so they can get more one-on-one, and then move away from this really structured, like, especially be at class at 7:15 in the morning. That doesn't work because, you know, we now have studies that say, like, the earlier the kids wake up to go to school, the less they're retaining the information that they're being provided. And the more, you know, or the higher rate of depression they have. You know, it's really tough and stressful on these kids, and their brains are still developing. So yeah, there's a lot we can do. And I don't know who should head that up. And it definitely shouldn't be private businesses. And it definitely should be, you know, someone that doesn't have a stake in, you know, let's say they don't have kids or they're not an educator. They probably shouldn't be making.
You mean like not Betsy DeVos?
Right.
God, that lady. No, yeah, this the fact that they are more so rated on attendance than they are on how they're doing with the grades is just like, that in and of itself is incredulous to me. Like, what are we doing that we're grading you by attendance and not by, and then it doesn't even take into account, like, you're judging the kids by attendance and tardies and things like that. Well, what about the kids with situations out of their control?
Right.
You know, kids who their parents aren't getting up to take them to school for whatever reason, you know? So it's not a fair system, as nothing is in America. But
yeah, well, my oldest has some medical issues that keeps her from attending school every day. And so I'm having to consistently call in and provide excused absence, which then she makes up, which I'm glad that she has that option. But like you said, like, some people, whether it be a financial situation where they can't come every day or a medical issue that they can't attend, I don't think it's right that we're penalizing these kids for that.
Yeah. Again, that's not a one size fit all issue. It's just, there's too many variables at play. So on that note, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Bite Me. All right, guys, we're back with Bite Me. Again, this is Jason joining me today. We're talking about the American educational system. So fourth question I have for you, Jason, is I think I can safely assume that were you and I to have a label, we'd be characterized as devout leftists, liberals, however you want to put that. Maybe you don't have a label at all, but when I look towards what the type of people that we speak on TikTok, leftist is apparently the term. That said, just as our children are the future of the nation, so are the children of the far right conservatives. So,
Yeah.
given the perception that human kindness, compassion, understanding starts at the root of a human's existence, aka childhood, what, if any, are your hopes for the future in regards to democracy and societal expectations as a whole for the next generation?
Wow.
Yeah. not too serious, not too much pressure.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that I feel like younger generations are starting to pull away from authority a little bit, which could be good or bad.
Yeah.
I have seen, and I know you've seen it, especially on like channels like the Republican Hype House with these, Gen Z kids that like want to be controversial. So therefore they pick up an ideology that they clearly know is hateful.
Yeah.
But they're doing it because they receive that kind of admiration that maybe they're not getting at home, which is unfortunate. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping that's not the norm. I think that's what I'll say. I think that I heard on the radio the other day, or maybe it was a YouTube video, that the number of Americans that are adhering to, let's say, an organized religion or a church is now under 50%. So it's like
Right.
40%.
Laura was talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even it drops even further for like younger millennials and Gen Z. And I think that's definitely a good sign, because it's not that I don't want kids to be religious, right? Do what you want, but
You don't want them to be brainwashed.
I don't want them to be part of an organized religion that sort of has a strict standard of dogmatic rules that they have to follow, because then they're just falling back into that same trap to say,
Right.
like, have to listen to the authority. And if this person says God said it, or if this person says the president said it, I automatically have to assume that it is fact. I really want to get that out.
Yeah, controlling people by fear and things like that.
Yeah, or weaponizing knowledge too. To say,
Right.
like, if you don't follow in this particular teachings, then you're somehow inherently dumb, or you don't understand the way the world works, or whatever it might be. And I think that if we can move kids away from that and put them in a more creative and a more collaborative learning experience or learning environment, we'll get more people that utilize proper critical thinking, as opposed to, I just got to follow this very specific rule set and then that's all I get. No, we want expand it out, problem solve, instead of just towing that line.
It sounds like what you're saying is you want the kids to be given all of the right information and then they can make their own assessments on it.
Right. Or just changing the way that you present that information to say, right now it's, you have a problem, give me the solution for it. Right.
Yeah.
I also want to see, like, we have this thing we want. I want you to give me all the issues that could occur during this particular equation, or whatever it might be. I do that a lot in my work. Right. So like, I design and develop applications and software. And part of my job is it's called a discovery phase, where we know what we want, right? I want an app that can collect information. But we also need all of the other requirements that come with that. Like, what information? How are we getting them to enter it? What happens if they don't have this information? All the critical thinking and all the sort of solutioning that comes with these kinds of tech careers, or even just careers in general, aren't taught in school. You have to kind of learn that just like on the job training. So
yeah, the data.
Right. So, if we can change the way that we teach kids, and we have them come up with their own requirements to solve something.
Yeah,
And
creativity, heuristics.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we give them the ability to be more creative, to be collaborative, instead of saying, like, you're here to study and then you're going to take a test and that you're doing it by yourself. Like, don't do that. Have projects that people work on, have products that they work towards, whether it's we're creating a collage of this piece of history that we're learning about, and that's how we're learning, or we're creating a science fair project together, and that's a good portion of my grade. So we're going to learn about osmosis or whatever it might be. That's I think is the future. And if we could do that, then we get people. It doesn't even matter if they're on the right, because if in 15 years we have this kind of critical thinking and they want to be a bit more conservative, that's okay. We may get to a conservative from like the 1980s or early 70s that at least understood that there are fundamentals of human rights that need to be protected, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think some of those methods that you're discussing are things they can actually use in real life, as opposed to like, you don't remember what you learned in the seventh grade or apply it on a daily basis. But working together with a team, you know, and learning how to navigate, you know, well, this didn't work or that works for this person, but it didn't work for me. And this is how we resolved it. Those are life skills.
Right. And also introducing like things that you will need in the future, like how do you do your taxes?
Right.
You know? How do you manage your money? Like, how do you invest properly? How do you build a resume? And how do you interview for jobs? You know, especially in high school where, you know, kids are kind of expected to go out and find these, you know, these sort of summer jobs or part-time positions or whatever to sort of learn how to navigate a workspace. They don't know how to do any of that. They have to ask their parents, or they're just going online to try to like go on YouTube. How do I?
Yeah, because if they don't have some, like the kids who don't have somebody to ask, you know, like where's their guidepost for what they're supposed to do?
Right. And I think the world is changing so quickly now that like, do you really need to learn how to do long division that has like 17 different steps in it? Probably not.
When you have the alphabet with the numbers, like
yeah.
Yeah, they lost me there too. Yeah.
I think some of it is important, but you know, like so many years of it, you know?
Yeah. So much of what they have in the school system now we used when we were kids, and it's antiquated. I mean, it's obsolete, and we need to come up with some modern techniques, it sounds like. So
yeah. And like I did a video the other day on TikTok. It was some lady saying we don't teach cursive anymore because we don't want kids to read the Constitution, which is inherently dumb because you could pull it up on the internet and it has it in plain text. But yeah, a lot of places are not teaching cursive anymore, and they're opting in for typing classes because that's where we're doing all of our data transfer now, you know?
Yeah. You know? I mean, they say cursive was for signing things, but my brother Seth, he draws a picture of a donkey and calls it a day. I'm not even joking.
That's
everywhere
cool.
we go. I guess, yeah, good for him. He really is an ass, and so he draws an ass. But final question, and this is non-related to the educational system. You're a TikTok dad and a pansexual dad and a woke dad. How did you get so cool, Jason?
I don't know.
Don't be modest.
Well, I mean, look, being part of the LGBTQIA community, being pansexual, being open for so long, and also working in the internet helped me kind of open my horizons to other people and give me the opportunities to like learn for myself. So like if I need to learn something, I will go look it up and I enjoy it. Right. So I'll watch things like Curse of God on YouTube, and they do weird things like what if we took all the uranium in the world and we made a big nuclear bomb and like, I don't know, exploded it? What would happen? You know, it's interesting stuff. And what it does is it helps me kind of learn differently. And so, you know, when I came out in 2008, which by the way, my wife helped me do that, which is
that's wonderful.
She's a saint.
She seems like a neat lady.
She's so awesome.
Yeah, she seems neat.
Yeah. And weird, but that's funny. You know, it's fun and
neat, weird, like, you know, the kind of chick that you want to sit and have a conversation with, you know, and shoot the shit with.
Yeah. And so, yeah, when I came out, you know, for everyone that comes out, it's kind of a weight lifted. And then I was able to sort of, I don't know, look internally and try to figure out like, who am I at this point? Cause I was so secretive my whole life, and that kind of wound me up. And I was kind of a angry person. And I used to deal with a lot of anger issues, and obviously therapy and stuff helped, and experience. I don't know. It's a weird question to say, how did you get so cool?
Well, like what I hear you saying when I hear you talk is like, there's people who adapt to their situations and become the trauma that caused them the trauma. And then there's people who go a totally different direction. You and I are those types of people. Like I got to a point in my life where everything was so toxic. I was met with the axe and I was like, bitch, you better figure this out. And so that's when I started doing the hard work on myself and started listening, reading, doing the research, and that's how I come to be who I am. It sounds like that's how you come to be who you are, is because you really we're always learning, we're always growing, and we were willing to grow.
Yeah. And I think I have an active sort of innate desire to be a good person.
Yeah.
And so whenever I do something, even now, like when I make videos and stuff, I'm really cognizant of like, is this going to offend somebody? Because I don't want that. And so I will go and I will find out, like, is this the proper terminology to use? Like, for example, if I talk about somebody who's disabled, a lot of people are saying differently abled, which is fine, and their intentions are good, but that's not the correct terminology to use. It's still offensive. And I found that out because I was, I think a few months ago, making a video where somebody was attacking somebody who was disabled, and I said differently abled in my TikTok, and before I posted it, I went and I looked it up and I said, is this an offensive term? And it turns out it's not, it's not as offensive as the R word, but it's still considered an offense to somebody who has a disability. And they said, just say disabled.
Sure.
And so because I am so aware, hyper aware, that I want to be a good person, and I want others to know that I'm at least a safe person to talk to if they need somebody like that. I learn from that because I'm always actively looking for things like that.
You have a keen sense of self-awareness and awareness of the consideration for people around you.
Yeah, I try to be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, nobody can do it perfectly. I still have times where sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done that a little differently, but the moment's passed, but that's life, that's learning, that's growing. So
yeah. Well, and I do get angry on my TikToks too. So
yeah, you do. Sometimes I think we all do,
Yeah.
But that's real. That's raw. I always tell people, like, I would hope if you met me, I don't think anybody can 100% be what they see behind the screen or what we are behind the screen. We're real people, and I talk about like we're famous. We're not famous. We're just regular people. But like, I would hope that if somebody met us in person, we would at least, like, at the 95 percentile be mostly what you saw behind a screen.
Yeah.
Like, I would hope that we're as real as what we put out there. Because I've met some TikTokers in person where it's like, you're not who you act like. So
right. They have a screen persona. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's beauty in our authenticity. And I think that that's what we should be doing. So I would say your TikToks are all authentic. And speaking of Jason's TikTok, you should check him out on TikTok. Jason, do you have anything that you want to plug? What do you got going on in your life?
So obviously the TikTok is, if you could come follow, that'd be great. It's at J.Dkon at J.Dkon. And then my Twitch, I just started a Twitch channel.
Okay.
I used to stream in the past and it kind of died out. And now I'm like, well, I have a platform and I like to chat with people. And so let's do it. So I made a Twitch channel. It's just twitch.tv/J.Dkon. It's all like same, no weird characters or anything. Okay. And I think I actually might be streaming later tonight. I don't know when this is coming out. So
it won't be tonight. It'll be a few weeks from now. There's some others ahead of you. I try to be intentional with the episodes. I found out that my followers can only handle me about once per week on the podcast. So that's what the data suggests. But yeah,
so by the time this is out, then I'll have a more definitive schedule. I'm trying to stream at least once or twice per week. And we do like 2 hours or so. So it's not a long stream, and we'll play interesting games. And I play games that I can still talk to people. So I don't have to be so focused, because I do like the interaction. And so
kind of like Discord, like you're gaming and chatting.
Yeah. So yeah, if you don't know what Twitch is, it's a social media platform where I'm on camera. My computer is also on the screen, so you can see what video games I'm playing. And I'm also on the microphone and chatting with everyone that's in the stream. They can send messages to me and everyone else sees it. It's like a big live stream.
Yeah, sounds very cool. Some live interaction with Jason J.Dkon. Yeah. All right, guys, that's our show. For more information on why the American educational system sucks so bad, you can go to www.thedadadvocate.org and read 18 reasons why the American education system is failing. And to check out more info on homeschooling, see requirements for your state at hslda.org. I want to thank Jason for being here, and we'll see you guys next time on Bite Me.